Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel, and welcome to my talk on exploring LLMs in video game NPCs. So before I begin, exactly do I mean by AI? Well, as you've probably gathered from all the previous takeaways on the topic, this term is used very broadly, and it's no different in video games. People often use the term AI in reference to the NPCs or the bots they're up against, even though there's often not too much intelligence going on here. I know I personally very much enjoy watching glitch compilations on YouTube. So in my talk, I'll be referring to LLMs that is used as the brains of these NPCs that can be combined with context awareness and memory to allow them to fit into the game world immersively. So before we talk about the actual implementations, let's talk about sandbox versus story-driven gameplay, because the use of LLMs will vary between these. So for sandbox games, these allow you to interact with the game world in the way you want to. So you make your own story for these. And so it's crucial that the NPCs and the game world are interesting and immersive to keep you engaged. A big keyword here is emergent gameplay. So this refers to complex interactions that can occur from combining relatively simple game mechanics. So for example, we can combine a character with the ability to move and fight, a rich environment with a backstory and variety of enemies, and NPCs that give generated quests to interact with that environment. And this gives us the foundation of a fun sandbox game. On the other hand, story-driven games are a more curated experience. So for these, the developers want you to experience the story and the world they've created. There can still be variations, of course, like branching dialogue options with consequences. But when we compare these to the sandbox games, we often have a character with more well-defined backstories, intentional environments, and NPCs that give pre-written quests. Hopefully the difference between these is more clear now. And by now, some of you might be thinking, well, at the level of LLM technology currently available, this will probably be more appropriate for sandbox games. So what's the expert opinion on this? Well, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most technologically advanced games on the market today. So like many big game studios, they've experimented with AI in their games. So their opinion on the topic when asked was that AI in its current state can be used to give some more authentic NPC reactions. But beyond that, there's still a massive gap in quality between AI and humans when it comes to stories and voice acting. In actual game development, it's used more to speed up processes than to replace the creative side of the development. And as tech people, I'm sure that sounds familiar to you. So that's enough background stuff. Let's have a look at some examples. So for the sandbox example, we have a technology called FACUL for Arena Breakout. And no, I'm not swearing at you. That stands for First Ever FPS AI Companion Who Understands Human Language. And then for the story-driven example, we have a mod for Cyberpunk 2077 called Conversational AI NPCs for LLMs with Conda AI. And then for a combination of both, we have the AI follower framework for Skyrim. We'll go over the first two quite quickly, but for the follower framework mod, I'll give a more in-depth explanation because this one's really cool. And if you want to explore any of the examples I have today, I have some links on the last slide. Okay, so Arena Breakout is a hardcore extraction shooter where you can go in with a team of up to 3 other players, and you can get into a map, fight, and get some loot, and then get out. So now, of course, in a game like this, it's obviously much better to have a group of friends with you on Discord or something that you can talk to and coordinate your actions. And this would give an advantage over teams with no mics or solo players. So FACUL is a work-in-progress feature that gives you AI companions that you can give complex instructions through natural language. They can also analyze situations and react to the environment. This would have big advantages for solo players, but as you can imagine, it will also be quite hard to balance. So here we have an example of a complex instruction you can give. So in this situation, the player is under attack, but also close to the extract location. So he is told 2 of his AI companions to go engage the enemy, and the other one is accompanying him to the extract. So the commands given to these companions can include over 17,000 in-game objects. So for example, you can tell your companions to go take cover at that red trailer and they'll recognize it. or you can ask them to find a green weapon box to help you with finding loot. You can engage in natural conversation with them. You can ask them to tell jokes. They're not too great, though, from the video I've watched. But also, you can ask them for tactical commands like regrouping, advancing, covering you, etc. They can help you find loot containers, but they can't pick it up themselves. This is probably for the balance reasons I mentioned earlier. So yeah, this is still a tech demo at this point, but I recommend going to check out the trailer for it. It's very interesting. And the general reception on the video was pretty positive. People are quite excited for this, but also there were quite a few people wondering about the balance, of course. Okay, for the next example, I don't think the slide is up. Okay, there we go. Cool. Okay, for the next example, we have a mod for Cyberpunk by Conda AI. So after installing this mod, each NPC can be interacted with using your voice, and this gets sent as a text file to the Conv AI API. So all you need for this is a free account to get that API key, and then you can get up to 100 free interactions per day and 1 megabyte of data storage for your characters. Each character's ID is mapped to data stored on the Conv AI dashboard, and this contains background information, memories, voice, and other optional data. And you can also modify this in real time. So if the NPC starts saying things that aren't very appropriate, you can go in there and just edit the text on the dashboard. Currently, this is more of a demo, but you can still do cool things here, like have in-character conversations with these NPCs, and even ask them to interact with the world. So in that bottom picture there, you can see that the guys actually asked one of the NPCs to create a distraction, and then the NPC actually goes to attack these other NPCs in the game. And this is possible because Conda AI has an SDK that integrates with various game engines. However, even though this game is very story-driven, this mod is still in a very much sandbox state at the moment. There's a good representation of how far the technology has come, but it's also a reminder that there's still a long way to go before we get a fully AI-generated story game. This next mod for Skyrim, though, is the real deal. So for some of you with a PC and a copy of Skyrim, I highly recommend trying this one out. For those that aren't familiar with this game, Skyrim is one of the most popular fantasy RPG games ever made, and people still play this today, even though it's 13 years old, because of how many mods are coming out for this game every day. So let's go over some of the features of this mod. So you can make any NPC an interactable AI with a hotkey. And yeah, that includes the animals as well. So you can talk to the animals. All the vanilla NPCs already have custom biographies, but you can edit these and add your own characters by using CSV files. You can activate multiple NPCs at once, and then multiple activated NPCs can converse with each other without needing the player's interaction. And NPCs' biographies can be dynamically updated through in-game events and interacting with the player. The AI can also track many in-game events like combat encounters, dialogue, player stats, and even who was there during the events. So if you want to keep secrets from the AI, you can tell them to go away and then do something, and then they won't remember that. You can also trigger actions through natural conversation. So you can tell NPCs to attack something, check their inventory, sit down, wait, etc. And they've even included a narrator, and this narrator can recap your gameplay and give you help with quests and things. So there's a lot of other cool details that you can also check out on the mod page in your own time. Okay, that's great and all, but what do you need to get started? So it's basically 4 things. First, a speech-to-text service. So this converts your voice into a text file. Then an image-to-text service. This one's optional, but it's pretty cool because you can allow the AIs to see what's on your screen while you're playing. Then you need the LLM. There's a couple of options here, and this is what will take the text prompts and convert it to generate a response. And finally, the text-to-speech service is what's used for actually giving the NPCs their voice in the game. And once you've configured all of that with all of these technologies, it just works. So here we have a diagram showing the overview of how everything works. It's slightly outdated. You can see they're referring to a character called Herika there. So that was actually the name of the original follower NPC before this mod became an entire framework. But the process is still basically the same. So let's go over the input. So there are two ways for this AI to receive input. You can talk to them or use a chat box. And then also they can get input through in-game events like changing the location, combat starting, etc. Then this input is combined with context over here to give a more appropriate response before it's sent to the server. Okay, once this input is sent to the server, okay, so let's talk about the server first before we talk about the actual prompt. So this server has three main roles. So the first one is to act as a middleman between the agent you've installed in Skyrim and the different APIs you're using. And then it also manages the NPC's memory. And all of this stuff is stored in a PostgreSQL database on the server. And the final role is to package up the prompts to get more immersive responses back from the AI. Okay, so once you've actually given the input to the server, you now need to assemble a prompt. You can't just send that to the LLM because it won't give a very immersive response. So basically, the server takes your prompt, then it combines it with certain role-playing and context rules that are basically assigned to every NPC. And then it takes an array of context entries and memories as well that are coming from the database over here. And then finally, it includes the actual trigger for the prompt, which is coming from your input. And then it's sent over here. So the interaction with these APIs goes from the bottom to the top. So first we have the speech-to-text API, which is the actual text file input. Then we have the AI prompt API, which is taking the actual prompt code that has been assembled here in the server. And then finally, we have the text-to-speech API, which takes the generated text file from the LLM and sends back a WAV file, which is how you'll hear that response in the game. So yeah, that is it for the examples I have today. So what can we take away from this? Well, first of all, the current state of LLMs in video games is pretty experimental and mostly used for sandbox experiences, but it can still be very fun. You can have some very interesting interactions with these characters, especially because of the context and memory integrations. And it can be very fun if you're into experimenting with this stuff and making your own stories and games. However, if you're looking for a fully story-driven, dynamically generated game with AI, there's still quite a lot of progress to be made. But in the meantime, there are a couple of options for you. Like there's this text-based adventure game called AI Dungeon. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's actually quite fun. Yeah, quite fun. And on a positive note, the amount of progress that has been made here in a short amount of time is actually pretty impressive. So that AI follower framework mod started as a single companion only a year ago. So personally, I'm pretty excited for the future of LLMs in video games. Thanks for listening. Here are some links to the examples I was talking about. Any questions?